On Wednesday, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom stood in the House of Commons and said that a man he had personally appointed to one of the most important jobs in British diplomacy had betrayed our country. By Thursday, he was apologising to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for ever believing that man's lies. The man is Peter Mandelson. For 30 years, he was one of the most powerful figures in British politics. They called him the Prince of Darkness. He helped create New Labour. He served in the cabinets of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. He was forced to resign twice, and twice he came back. In February 2025, Keir Starmer made him Britain's ambassador to the United States. 8 months later, Starmer sacked him. This week, Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party. He quit the House of Lords. The Metropolitan Police have opened a criminal investigation, and Labour MPs are now openly discussing whether Keir Starmer can survive as Prime Minister. This is the story of how the Epstein files exposed the darkest chapter in modern British political history, and why MPs across Westminster are panicking about what else might still be in those 3 million documents. To understand why this matters, you have to understand who Peter Mandelson was. He was the grandson of Herbert Morrison, a giant of the post-war Labour Party. He grew up in politics. By the 1980s, he had become Labour's Director of Communications, and he was very good at it. Mandelson understood something that Labour had forgotten. Elections are not won by policies, they are won by perception, by image, by control. He transformed Labour from an unelectable mess into a machine. He was the architect of New Labour, the man who helped Tony Blair win 3 consecutive general elections. He was a fixer, a strategist, a man who operated in shadows. The tabloids called him the Prince of Darkness. He cultivated the nickname. He also had a talent for scandal. In 1998, he resigned from cabinet. After it emerged, he had taken an undisclosed loan from a fellow minister to buy a house. He was brought back. In 2001, he resigned again over allegations he had helped a wealthy donor obtain a British passport. He denied wrongdoing but left anyway. Most politicians would have been finished. Mandelson came back again. Gordon Brown made him business secretary in 2008, effectively his deputy. He was given a seat in the House of Lords. He became Lord Mandelson, and somewhere in all of this, he became friends with Jeffrey Epstein. The friendship appears to have begun in the early 2000s. In 2003, Mandelson signed Epstein's birthday book with a message calling him "my best pal." At the time, Epstein was known as a mysterious financier who moved among the global elite. He was close to Bill Clinton. He was close to Prince Andrew. He was very, very rich. What nobody knew then, at least not publicly, was that Epstein was running one of the most prolific child sex trafficking operations ever uncovered. In May 2002, Mandelson arranged for Epstein to meet Tony Blair at Downing Street. Emails show Mandelson lobbied Blair's chief of staff, Jonathan Powell, pushing for the meeting. He described Epstein as a friend of mine and said he was safe. He said Bill Clinton wanted Blair to meet him. A memo prepared for Blair by senior civil servant Matthew Rycroft described Epstein as a super-rich financial advisor and noted he was close to the Duke of York. Blair met Epstein at 5 p.m. on May 14, 2002. His spokesperson now says the meeting lasted less than 30 minutes and covered US and UK politics. This was 4 years before Epstein was first arrested. In 2006, American authorities issued an arrest warrant for Epstein for sexual assault of a minor. In 2008, he pleaded guilty to soliciting prostitution from an underage girl. He served 13 months. For most people, that would end a friendship. For Peter Mandelson, it did not. The emails released by the US Department of Justice show that Mandelson's relationship with Epstein continued for years after the conviction. And they show something else. They show that while Mandelson was sitting in Gordon Brown's cabinet as business secretary, he was passing sensitive government information to a convicted child sex offender. In June 2009, Mandelson forwarded Epstein an internal Downing Street document. It was a memo proposing £20 billion of asset sales to help Britain recover from the financial crisis. It revealed Labour's tax policy plans. Mandelson's message to Epstein. Interesting note that's gone to the PM. In December 2009, Mandelson and Epstein exchanged emails about Britain's plan to impose a special tax on bankers' bonuses. Mandelson wrote, "Trying hard to amend, Treasury digging in, but I am on the case." He appeared to be lobbying his own government on behalf of Epstein's financial interests. In May 2010, Mandelson tipped Epstein off about a €500 billion bailout being prepared by European governments to save the Eurozone. The message was sent hours before the announcement. And on the day Gordon Brown resigned as Prime Minister, Mandelson emailed Epstein, "Finally got him to go today." Epstein's reply, "I have faith. The value of some chapters in your book should now increase." They were discussing Brown's downfall like a business opportunity. The documents also suggest Epstein paid Mandelson. Bank records show 3 payments totaling $75,000 sent to accounts linked to Mandelson or his partner between 2003 and 2004. In 2009, Epstein sent Mandelson's partner £10,000 for an osteopathy course. Mandelson says he has no recollection of receiving payments and questions whether the documents are authentic. But here is what makes this a crisis for the entire government. Keir Starmer knew about Mandelson's Epstein connection when he appointed him ambassador. On Wednesday, Starmer admitted in the House of Commons that the vetting process had flagged Mandelson's ongoing relationship with Epstein after the 2008 conviction. Questions were put to Mandelson. He was asked directly about the nature of the relationship, whether he had stayed with Epstein, whether he had received gifts. Mandelson, according to Starmer, lied repeatedly. But Starmer appointed him anyway. He sent him to Washington to manage Britain's most important diplomatic relationship, knowing that this man had maintained a friendship with a convicted paedophile. The Prime Minister's defence is that he did not know the full depth and darkness of the relationship, that Mandelson deceived him, that he was lied to. Labour MPs are not buying it. One MP told journalists it was the angriest he had seen Labour backbenchers in 16 years. Another said the Prime Minister's position was untenable. A third said trust in Starmer was now finite. Former Deputy Leader Angela Rayner led a revolt that forced Starmer to back down on his plan to let civil servants decide which documents about the appointment could be released. Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee will now oversee the process. The Conservative leader has called for a vote of no confidence. The Liberal Democrats have joined the call. Reform UK's Nigel Farage has demanded a European anti-fraud investigation into Mandelson's time as EU Trade Commissioner. Political analysts at Eurasia Group now put the probability of a leadership challenge against Starmer this year at 80%, and there is a criminal investigation. The Metropolitan Police have announced they are investigating a 72-year-old former government minister for misconduct in public office. They have not named Mandelson, but everyone knows who they mean. Misconduct in public office carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The documents suggest Mandelson was not just maintaining a friendship with Epstein. He was feeding him market-sensitive government information during one of the worst financial crises in British history. Information that could have been worth millions to anyone trading on it. Tax attorney Dan Needle, who has analysed the files, said what he found was extraordinary. Peter Mandelson was forwarding sensitive government emails to Epstein, not just UK government secrets. He was leaking UK and US government secrets to Wall Street. And here is the question that nobody in Westminster wants to answer. Who else is in those files? 3 million documents were released last Friday. They contain emails, bank records, photographs, and videos. They have already brought down a prince and an ambassador. They have triggered a criminal investigation and a potential leadership crisis. Tony Blair's name appears in the files. He met Epstein at Downing Street. In a newly released audio recording, Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak are heard discussing gigantic consulting fees paid to Blair after he left office, speculating about where the money really went. Blair's spokesperson says the figures mentioned are rubbish. But the files are still being analysed. Journalists are still reading. More names will emerge. The panic in Westminster is not just about what has already been revealed. It is about what might come next. For 30 years, Peter Mandelson operated at the heart of British power. He knew everyone. He had access to everything. He was in the room when decisions were made about wars, about the economy, about the future of the country. And throughout that time, he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He called him his best pal. He shared government secrets with him. He may have taken his money. The question MPs are asking is simple. If Mandelson was this compromised, who else was? Harriet Harman, who served alongside Mandelson in government, said she had long thought him untrustworthy. But she was shocked at the degree of wrongdoing. "I could never have believed," she said, "that Gordon Brown, having appointed him to cabinet, he would sit in that cabinet and leak information whilst the government was struggling to deal with the financial crisis." She added, "People will think all their prejudices about politicians have proved right." That is the real damage here. Not just to Mandelson, not just to Starmer, but to the entire political class. For years, ordinary people have suspected that the rules do not apply to those at the top, that there is one system for the powerful and another for everyone else. That when scandals emerge, the establishment protects its own. The Mandelson affair confirms every one of those suspicions. A man with 2 forced resignations on his record was given a seat in the House of Lords. A man who maintained a friendship with a convicted child sex offender was appointed ambassador to the United States. A man who leaked government secrets to a paedophile sat in cabinet and shaped economic policy during a national crisis. And when the truth finally came out, the Prime Minister's first instinct was to control what documents could be released. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in a jail cell in 2019. He never faced trial on federal sex trafficking charges. He never answered questions about his network of powerful friends. But the documents he left behind are answering those questions for him. Peter Mandelson resigned from the House of Lords on Tuesday. He has lost his position, his party membership, and his reputation. He may yet lose his freedom. Keir Starmer is clinging to power, apologising to victims, blaming the man he chose to trust. And somewhere in those 3 million documents, there may be more names, more emails, more secrets that powerful people thought would stay buried forever. The files are public now, the world is reading them, and Westminster is holding its breath.